this is an incredible legacy that we have. Moving into our 50th year, Gus and Marty are very present and thinking about living a dream where the history of the 1960s is now the history of 2016, and there is plenty that is keeping the 7th and 8th graders glued to the world that we live in. Progressive education is something that we've held to from the beginning. It's something that we know works because of all of you. We also know that it's hard sell sometimes to incoming families that are looking for whatever they think they're looking for young children. The farm is actually one of the biggest reasons that families are choosing MCS. When I was first a teacher, I remember that the farm was a best kept secret. Once the kids got on the bus and went away, nobody wrote to them except those letters that the parents put on the bus. And, the idea was that it was totally a separate place. Now, that's hardly the case. And in fact, it's one of the leading contributors when you survey families about why they have chosen to come to MCS. The farm is a big part of it. Our public mission for me has always been really important. I think it was important to me that Gus and Marty understood that a school of 200, which is what they started a school to look like, would eventually require something more than just the small number of children and families that would be part of that initial determination, if you will. And so the public mission was a way to say, you know what, people need to know about what's happening here, and it needs to be worthy of people understanding it and supporting it who understand the mission. Things are not so different these days. 200 students, 4 5s to 8th grade is what we've left on 96th Street. They talked a lot about no racial majority, and the tuition reform was a way to really support that diversity. I think all of you know they hired some incredible people to be special teachers, and I feel like that's something that we really held to. I get help from a lot of people in doing that, but there's no question that the teachers here are pretty extraordinary and interesting people. I'm looking at you, Risa, because you always tell me, talk about the teachers, talk about the teachers. And the curriculum reflects the mission and furthers the mission in a lot of ways. So that's our legacy. I've been reading studies lately, and it tells two stories. One is schools are more segregated than they've ever been, and the other is that there are very few examples of doing the hard work that it takes to keep a place like this going, and MCS is definitely one of them. 50 years of history of sticking to that mission and making it work for the broad groups of children that families bring here is a really unique story. So FAQs are good. We currently have 248 students. In 2020, we're aiming for 400. So it's because we doubled the 4 5s, the 5 6s, and the 6 7s that we have the 248. We just looked at our high school acceptance list. All the kids are into high school, but it's almost as interesting to look at the places where they were accepted and turned down as it was to look at where they're going. The same story that I've always heard is that very often the case, in fact always the situation, is if there's a graduating class of 18 or 20, they'll go to 15 or 16 different schools. So they got into 22 independent schools, 17 boarding schools. 17 boarding schools. That feels like a chapter that Cynthia Rogers, who does high school placement now, has really been working on. And 7 kids in the graduating class are going to go to boarding school, many of whom have some kind of an environmental program or farm-based program. And they want our kids because they know when they get there, they'll know what to do in that situation. 14 are going to a longer list of public schools than used to be around. You know, it used to be Bronx Science, Stuyvesant, and Brooklyn Tech, and maybe LaGuardia. Now, in fact, there are a whole bunch of other schools that kids are looking at. Certainly, this is a school where families come to us saying this is a multicultural and economically mixed community, the likes of which they don't see on their other school tours. They very much want that to be part of their family's life. I mentioned the farm. I mostly find that alumni have no idea about the finances of MCS, so I thought let me start with, this is an $8 million budget for 245 kids. So it's a big undertaking to support the sliding scale, and it means there's a lot of work to do around that. But I'd also just point out that there are a few facts about MCS's broader impact. Sometimes people ask us how many people have graduated from MCS. It's about 1,500, but around each of them there's a circle of influence and impact. More than 900 student teachers and assistant teachers that you remember in the lower school years have gone on to work in other schools trained by MCS. 7,900 more students have gone to the farm, a lot from New York City, but some from local New York State area. And 5,000 educators or administrators have come here to visit to sort of pick up the model and understand how it works. And they always go away with something, whether it's a phone call or an actual visit. It's something that they find a way to replicate or adapt when they're in their schools. I think the mission is alive and well. This year was an initiative around gender exploration and creating a community for gender expansive peoples. We did it with the faculty, the parents did it, and we're seeing applications from students that makes it absolutely necessary for us to undertake that as an equity initiative at MCS. There is certainly lots of interest among the oldest kids in the bias issues that they hear in the world. And Nasim Zarifi, who's the 7th and 8th grade teacher, last year's activism project was on Islamophobia. That's when they made the sign, "We welcome refugees," that you see hanging in the lobby there. We are also still working with kids who care so much about their experience at the farm that climate change just is something that they think about kind of instinctively. And this year's activism project, they had chosen to be climate change. They just did a workshop for their parents and the teachers on the divestment of $5 billion. It's actually a very active divestment movement in fossil fuels. Trillion, did I say billion? Trillion. There were some parents listening. Big topic for 7th and 8th graders, and I think it showed. I also think it's remarkable what they learn when they actually get into the project. There are at least a few organizations that are coming to us saying, would you come and talk at our summer conference? One of them is at Teachers College. It's called Reimagining Education, Teaching and Learning in Racially Diverse Schools. We went last year, and they were mostly big public school districts that are wrestling with how to have curriculum and pedagogy, how to think about all the things that feel to us really important, the right topics to be talking about, and to have engagement with them made us better. It also was interesting to talk to them. That was a panel that Akemi was on, Monica, the admissions director, was on, Sabrina King, class of 73, I believe, is that right? 73. She joined us to be on that panel. Did I forget anything? I think that was it. That was great. And the National Seed Project, which trains mostly independent schools, but not entirely, to have teacher leaders that lead diversity conversations, and especially conversations about change. They've chosen 2 MCS teachers to go and be trained this summer. So it's a very sort of mutual relationship where people are coming, but also we're being asked to go, where I think it's really an investment not only in their professional development, but really the development of the school. The program looks pretty familiar. When you do a school tour, if you're here during the day, there are kids sitting in circles in the morning doing their morning meeting. This happened to be the first day that this class was able to go into their space on the 3rd floor. They had been literally using the back of the gym for the first month and a half of school. So they were doing a little mindfulness as they were getting used to their new space. So yes, there are morning meetings, but new things get introduced, like little mindfulness exercises that they do every single day. I think that's Amari's class. Anybody recognize what that is? MLK Play, you got it, right? It happened here this year, the summary of their civil rights curriculum, educating the community, trying to figure out, how to do it for the younger kids or a bigger school, etc. There's sort of two parts of the school program that we've been more deliberate about developing. When I was a teacher, I remember having conversations about a sort of intellectual understanding of how change happens, but thinking more experientially about it and how to make activism the culmination of 4 or 5s all the way through 8th grade is something we've spent a lot of time on. And as I said, the farm and school are more closely linked. John is the new farm director. Read, I think you probably have seen that news. This is the first year, but definitely the solar panels up there are producing 100% of our electricity, and they have saved us quite a large tonnage of carbon that is shown on the website and with a regular update. We're hoping to be able to also link with our weather station up there. Greg is working at the farm, so if you want to know more about that, talk to Greg. We have lots more extended day programs. Kids are getting here earlier in the morning. There's a whole slew of after-school classes. There are activities weeks and the weeks when we are not in school. It's a robust program that starts early, ends late, and it feels like this building is never empty. So this is the staff and the faculty. Remarkable to me that we actually have an alum from every single decade of graduates. So can you imagine who the 70s graduate is? Mary, right? The 80s graduate is
Kemi,
right? And the 90s graduate is Dawn, right? And at the farm, we have someone from the 2000s, Greg, and I just heard that Miwa Yoshikami from the 2000, she's from 2011, is going to be the farm camp intern. So one of the ways that MCS graduates engage with the school is to come teach here and work here. It's great, for new families that are part of the school to meet people that were here some time ago is really special. Another sort of thing is our communications with you are up. I just got a word from one of the 8th grade parents that their older daughter, who is at Northfield Mount Herman, got a special Dean's Award, and all this language in here is about how she took her MCS values. She's quite a singer, so she started with Clint and then ended up working with Donovan, but also, she was the voice for social justice and for racial awareness and so on at her school. Damon Gambuto from 1987 just posted on Facebook today about a screenplay that he's written that is going to be produced on television, and once again, it's very much rooted in his experience here at MCS. And Meg Sullivan called this week at the same time that some MCS parents who have young children called to say that they had spent Sunday at the JCC Harlem, a brand new organization, and guess what? They were sitting at the table with somebody that was so lovely with their children. They said, "Where did you go to school?" She said, "Well, this place called Manhattan Country School," and their kids are at MCS too. So it's really important for us to get your updated news of this kind, because I think the current families are as interested in what MCS alums are doing as you are about each other. MCS benefits so much when alumni show up. And I had to leave out so many different examples of that, but you have no idea how much we appreciate it because people really do show up. They come to Farm Festival, they come to the MLK Walk, they come to Big Night Out, they come to things like tonight, and we've been doing a panel for families that we accept, and they have about a week to accept us, and the feedback on how alumni talk about what they took away from this is always one of the major reasons that people who may not have been here since September and now it's February say, oh, that's right. That's what the 8th graders talked to me about, and now I see it again. So we've been, really lucky to have, and frankly, I think we could pull any alum name out of the hat. It is not a special invitation. It's really the stories that you tell. This is kind of a newer thing, but the community basketball game is every February. We've been doing it at the 92nd Street Y. It's alums and parents and kids and games, and it is really a whale of fun. It always takes the grown-ups a lot longer than the kids to not fall on each other, push too hard. Alumni and students seem to really lock into that much more easily. Alumni families are part of the community. This is just 4 people who were here on Grandparents' Day, 4 sets of people. People come, alumni families a lot. The last thing I want to talk about is the work that the board has been doing. Hi. These are all alumni board members, listed alphabetically, not by year. And over the last few years, they've been working on the plan that got us here. So the orange or pink is phase 1. That's where we are right now. So if you took the tour already, you'll see that we are in 5 floors. We're also using the basement for the kitchen where all this fabulous farm-to-table food was prepared. The courtyard is the blue that was cut out of the center of the top floors so that we would have some of the same feel as we had on 96th Street, and the communication and circulation would have some similarities. In order to make this work, we will build the 6th floor into 2 years after this, and the green is a top floor where there will be the final location of the science lab and the art room. I think as the enrollment grows, we need to move up. So that's why the 3 phases. This obviously wasn't a small undertaking. It was really done to support the financial model of the school that looks like this. The dark blue is the amount of our revenue that comes from tuition and fees, 65%. The other 35% comes from all the other revenue that we generate, whether it's through events and fundraising, renting the farm, whether it's running the after-school program. I mean, basically MCS does it by any creative notion. We are raising that other 35% of our budget. At Big Night Out, we announced that in order to fully do all of the construction as well as support the sliding scale system into the next decades, it will be a $15 million project, of which we raised $5 million. When we started this project, we were very careful about our strategy and looking at what it would take to really sustain sliding scale tuition so that all the families in all those income categories that come to the door looking for this kind of experience for their children could really have an opportunity to do it. And this is the end result. So there is a piece of the construction that hasn't been done. I mentioned that that's where the science lab will go, and there will be a rooftop farm. Very, very exciting, actually, to think that that can happen. And there will be open space there too, so that we can have spaces for kids to go. Fifth floor kids always need space to go. Right? It used to be the fire escape. I don't know if you saw, there is a fire escape. But some rooftop space, those fifth floor teachers are lobbying very hard. You remember I was a Spanish teacher for some of you. So this is not a made at MCS sign. This is from something I saw somewhere else, but certainly one of the things I cherish about MCS is alegría. You know, it's such a happy place. You see kids running into school every day. You see kids learning and thriving, and you know, these two quotes about feeling fortunate and feeling influenced in a way to be such strong citizens of the world and connected to these things are something that, you know, really I feel the board and the faculty and everyone who's part of MCS, the families that have been here and go forward that way, want for years to come. So that's sort of the end of the formal part. I thought I would just give a chance for people to help all the board members who are here who want to come up, alumni board members. And, you know, the ways that alumni have engaged so far, as faculty members, as ambassadors, speakers, certainly donors. When we ask for 8th grade mentoring day, some people are trustees, updating their information, helping us rent the farm to other school programs, helping admissions. There are some people in the room that are going to be new parents next fall. It's very exciting. And just as resources for us. You know, I think when we were first talking at the board about whether or not there was a way forward, I went to visit the Bronx Community Charter School that Sasha Wilson started, and walking into that space, I felt MCS. And I just had a moment when I thought, you know what, if Sasha, out of his experience, can start a school and have it feel this way, then certainly to keep sliding scale tuition for us, we must be able to make this transition. So we are planning to reach out to alumni constantly as resources. Doesn't mean we all know what our resources are. I remember calling Julie when we thought we might need a little more gym space, because I know she's at the Y. You know, it just is ways of making connections. I've also heard from alums that you connect with each other, and that sometimes those connections are very fruitful. So it isn't just sort of school to alums, it's also alums within each other. But I think we would all love to know more formally some of the information about where people went to high school and college and that kind of thing. So we are planning a formal survey. But if you have other ideas about ways that as alumni, the board members, etc., could think together, engage with one another in different ways, I think this is a chance for us to hear that. So thank you very much for coming. It means a lot to have people show up when you know, are telling a story that's been 35 years of your life.